Welcome to the Success Ascent. My name is Pat Mancuso, the creator and host of our show. And today we have a very special guest here. His name is Anthony Trucks. Now, first of all, I got to give some kudos and a shout out to Tommy Breedlove. Absolutely been a great source for folks that are impacting business owners' lives and just people. So thanks so much, Tommy, for introducing us to Anthony. Now, let me tell you about Anthony. Anthony is a former NFL athlete, a standout American Ninja Warrior competitor. Anthony, I think my 13-year-old would like me to do that. I might need a trainer there. International speaker, host of Awe Shift and Shift Starter podcast. He's also an author of Identity Shift and a founder of Identity Shift Coaching. Anthony uses cutting-edge science and psychology to upgrade how you operate so you can elevate your life and business to reach your full potential. And boy, I think do we need this conversation today in our world. After being given away into foster care at 3 years old, being adopted into an all-white family at 14, losing his NFL career to injury, and more, he learned how to shift at a very young age. And now his life mission is teaching others how to make shift happen in their lives. So, Anthony, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Well, so, Anthony, we always have some fun with our guests, and we say, that was Anthony on paper. Tell us something about Anthony that's not on paper or that maybe a lot of people don't know.
I am I am all in on the family, man. I think you might know this if you pay attention to me though, but I'm a guy that I try to make sure that I live in a way that matches all the words that I speak, right? So if you want to talk about like weird things I do, I am a guy that's very playful with my family. We watch a bunch of weird movies. And I'm also the guy, here's the thing, I don't have this humongous facade and ego to myself. Like I'm the guy that still has to go and take care of fixing things around the house. And I'm the handyman for my wife's businesses. I'm taking trash out. I'm cleaning things. Like I'm that guy. So I thought that's a weird thing, but I want people to realize I tell folks I am a regular human. I just happen to have an irregular desire to help people.
Yeah, well, and boy, we need a lot of regular humans that are actually normal to help others today. There's no doubt about it, because there's a lot lacking there. So, Anthony, let's talk first about your entrepreneurial journey. So I always like to start with talking to people, first, how did you get into this entrepreneurial world? Like, what got you started? Did somebody stimulate the idea? Were you around some folks? Like, where did that start?
I hated my boss. That was it. I was like, I don't want my, well, it's not that I hated my boss. I hated the idea also of having a boss. I'd played in the NFL. When I got done with that, it's a long journey to that to begin with. I got to this point of like having a boss when I left the NFL. That was a master trainer at 24-Hour Fitness. And like after a week, I was like, this guy should not be ahead of me. And so I was like, I'm going to have to go start my own thing. So I stopped being an employee and went out on the, I would say, stupid, but incredibly smart, journey of being my own boss, so to speak. Yeah. And it put me into the microcosm of the world, which is entrepreneurship, that you learn so much in such a small amount of time in one like little bubble. And so that was it, man. I ventured into it. The first business was a gym business, and that's a journey of itself. But yeah, that was my first foray into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, and entrepreneurs, typically that is common. They don't want bosses. They don't want somebody telling them what to do, right?
Yeah, that was it. It wasn't a lure of money. It was it was desire for freedom, because I always had a boss, right? College, no people knows this, but when you're in college or the NFL, every single day of your life is planned. Like even if you get to go home, when you're coming home. So for 13 years of my life, I had somebody telling me when, where, how, all that. And I was like, I don't want that anymore. And so when I had the ability to like wake up and do what I wanted, like I loved it. Now you got to wake up and work. Like there's this video going around that says like, I wanted to have freedom. So I started my business, and now I work 24/7. That kind of thing. In the beginning of that, once you refine some things, years later now, I've got a really good harmony to life that I teach people that allows me to enjoy it all.
So in your journey, what ceilings have you hit, and how did you break through?
I think the first thing was there was a ceiling when I had my gym business and I ventured. This is a good question, by the way. Had no idea you're going to ask it, so I'm going off the cuff here. When I first ventured into business, I was a gym owner, right? And that ceiling was one where it's like, well, the most I can ever do is reach the people within, let's say 15 miles of my area with what I know and my impact. And that ceiling was one that hit me for a long time. And I was like, I want to do more. My heart was aching to do more, see more, accomplish more. And it was busted through when I ended up in an event called Experts Academy with a guy named Brennan Burchard in 2014. and I was introduced to a world way beyond the we'll call it the barriers of my local area to do business. And I busted through by taking a really unconfident action in a direction I didn't even know was wise. And that was how I kind of broke to that little wall.
I love it. I love it. And Brendan is amazing. And I know that he did the forward to your book, I think,
Yeah,
or the
he's amazing.
cover of your book. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So let's talk about a ceiling, if you may, or something as an entrepreneur that you didn't expect to happen, or something you experienced that really surprised you.
In the beginning, when you look at entrepreneurship, there's this, I think getting into it, people want to sell the idea of ease, right? We know there's going to be work, but we don't actually have this emotional connection of what it really looks like. And so what I faced was I got to a point of things are moving. And then all of a sudden, in order to get to the level of success I had and keep it there, I found myself like spinning all wheels. I was falling apart at home, falling apart in my health, falling apart in the business. Everything just was like, it was kind of like watching a car like the tire tread fly off.
Yeah,
Everything was moving so fast. And so I did not realize that in order for you to be able to go faster, because the goal is to go faster, right? That's the weird part. Imagine tires flying off and going, how do I go faster? That's the weird
right.
dynamic. The idea is to say, in order for us to go faster, I must not rely on this one wheel and let other wheels take the load.
Yeah,
And so for me, the thing I learned at that time was delegation, getting a team on in the right order, the right people, in the right time, and progression to the next stages to where now I've got like a team of 12 people. But
right.
it's a build, man. And that's one thing that when you start off, like, maybe I have to do that, but you don't realize that no, if you really want to get somewhere, you must stop being the bottleneck.
Yeah, it's so common, Anthony, that as I've interviewed, entrepreneurs over the last 2 years, it's so common that they struggle with that. And part of it is a good thing because they take personal responsibility for everything, and yet it's hard to let control go. And it's one of the things we do in our company is we work with companies on teaching them that and actually having them have a process because until you let go, you can't grow, right? And so that's a great point. So I want to take you and let's say you were sitting down with a 21-year-old version of yourself right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And you were coaching them and saying, hey, here's what I've learned, and I don't want you to make the same mistakes. And what would you tell that 20 something that you're sitting down with right now and coaching them on entrepreneurship?
I would say normalize the speed and the speed they're going. Like you said, it's interesting you said to not make the same mistakes. I would tell them to make more. Like,
I love it.
there's this thing where here's the thing. It's not to go and intentionally mess something up. That is not
Right.
the case. Mistakes are a byproduct of doing something and something unexpected happening. Right. That's really what a mistake is. We thought it's like, I
Right.
didn't mean for it to happen. But how do you get a mistake if you don't take an action in a direction? And what I didn't realize was the apprehension to experience a mistake was stopping all the progress to go forward. That's like me driving my car going, I don't want to drive down the street very fast because what if I get a nail? Well,
Right.
yeah, you might get a nail, but like you will eventually know how to avoid the nails at some point, and eventually you could patch the thing and keep going. But if you don't go anywhere, you don't even have the opportunity to get a nail, right? So for me, if I go back to 21 years old, I'd be like, "Hey, dude, go faster." I'd also tell him, "Hey, as soon as you see something called YouTube, get on that bad boy and start."
I love it. Can you imagine it? I don't know how old you are. I'll just put it out there that I'm in my 57. We won't say mid anymore.
There you go.
57.
Almost, yeah,
In YouTube, it's like what, 20 years old already? It's just
yeah,
crazy. It's just
yeah,
it's just so crazy how time flies.
yeah. It does, man. It's
Yeah.
weird. You make
So
me.
what's the next YouTube, Anthony? What do we need to be, jumping on
Oh
there?
man, my name's not Gary V, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
At one point, it was TikTok. Now it's TikTok. I think it's kind of building up and growing. There's so many different ways to put content out nowadays. I think what I'm seeing is a lot of individuals are creating their own segmented markets. I think the next thing's going to be your own app, right? It's going to
Yeah.
be where you can embed things and put things on. But people are going to the word like YouTube's going to be there. It's going to be there. But I think whenever you have a business or a brand, the next thing is how can I create great content because it's becoming easier to create and faster and you can get more creative with it, right? I think having your own platform that's your own channel, your
Yeah.
own station where people can go is going to be the next stage.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so let's shift. So we talked about like what you're doing right now, and obviously you wrote a book and you've got these programs, but let's back up, right? So I go to your website and I take this assessment, and I loved it. And it was a series of questions to help me identify my identity
Yeah.
So talk about that.
Yeah. So I don't want to go crazy deep here because one of the things people, the thought of it is in the book, right? So the book's a
Right.
great impact the concept, but essentially this is the thing. We have different parts of our self, right? We have our mindset, we have our beliefs. These are all encompassed into a one big bucket of what's called your identity. Your identity is who you are and how you do things when you aren't thinking about who you are or how you're doing things. You're just doing, right? And those actions create your life because obviously the things you do become the world you see around you. So the quiz is a way for you to look at one of 5 different types of identities that you are operating in right now without realizing. Because here's the interesting thing about identity. It's a statement I love, and it goes, it's hard to see the label when you are inside of the jar. So we all have this jar we're in doing our thing, but we don't see the label that says you procrastinate, you don't communicate very well, you're pessimistic, you don't get up early. Like we don't see it. We just do our thing and we go, why
Right.
can't I? Well, it's because that's what's going on, right? And so for me, it's an ability for you to kind of see the label on the jar and go, oh, that's the thing, which then finally for a lot of people can inform you of the right actions you must take to get to the place you're seeking.
So what do you think that most people struggle with around that conversation?
Guilt, a lot of
Guilt
guilt.
from what?
Well, here's the thing is that, and this is actually the work that we do. So I look at identity and identity shift concept as the vehicle. So people go, what's a vehicle do? Well, it takes from point A to point B. A vehicle is of no use if it's just sitting in one spot, right?
Right.
So point A, I've found happens to be a space where a lot of us operate without awareness of it, of what's called toxic or guiding guilt. And this comes from past actions or inactions or a thinking or thought that we've fallen short of doing something great, right? So this is where, like, as a father in the past, I wasn't a great father, wasn't a great husband, business wasn't good. And so what I did is I created some guilt and I lived from that. It becomes toxic if I think I don't deserve very much. Or if when I go towards something, I don't believe I'm capable, right? And so it becomes this shame, this darkness. And so I don't even think like I am worthy of more. And I don't think that I am capable of more, so to speak. So I get this diminished identity. And so I live in this life of where I'm doing the actions we talked about that
Right.
aren't creating better returns. And it sucks because I'm like, I'm giving the energy, but not getting the thing. And it's like, yeah, well, a lot of the time we're guilt ridden. Then you have another side of it, what I call guiding guilt. Now, there's actions that are driven from non-guilt ridden stuff, obviously, but I find guiding guilt's this thing where, like, I've ruined things in my life in the past. We are human. We've all done
Right.
that.
We
And
do make
so,
mistakes. Yeah.
right? So I go, you know what? I remember when that happened and what it did. I'm gonna let that past action guide me to the right direction in this moment. Say your kid walks in, hey, dad, do you want to go play a game? In the past, you're like, no, I'm busy and did never talk to him. And now you're like, oh, I remember when I made a choice. I don't want to feel like that. Let's go do it, son.
Right.
Those little things are guiding guilt type actions. Whether it was, you want to be in shape and you got in shape finally. Now you're like, oh, that candy bar is good. No, 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 no. I remember how it felt. I don't want to feel guilty eating it. I'm gonna eat this. So
Yeah.
little things guide us, right? And for me, if I talk about point A, well, what's point, B? Where's the destination we go? And what I found is through my journey, which we didn't talk about, people go look it up. It's an interesting journey I've gone through.
Yeah.
The back end is, well, how do I have it all? How do I live a guilt-free existence and have this ability to feed what we call in our team essentially is like the hustle demon, right? There's this part of us that desires to create, to grow, but in doing that, we feed that demon. We don't feed the marriage, we don't feed the family, don't feed our health,
Right.
and we call it balance. We got to have work-life balance. And I'm like, work-life balance is interesting. And people call like work-life harmony. I go, okay, it's an interesting part of it. I can see the harmony, but I call it hustle harmony. Because in the things that we do, this is point B for us, is like, I want you to have that monster fed, but at the same time, have a wife or a husband at home who celebrates you when you get that thing done. Your kids who feel
Yeah.
they feel like they're still first in life and you're expressing in all areas. And so when you're at home, you feel like they love you and you're present. When you're at work, you feel free to work without that darkness of your wife or kids like waiting for you, right? That,
Sure.
that hustle harmony is it's not some random thing you achieve. It's a version of your operational identity. It's how you are showing up that is living in that harmony with a specific rhythm you create.
So a lot of times what holds people back is these experiences, and they're way long ago, let's say. I mean, in my journey, my travels, people will, you have to go back a while, right? And it was
Mhm.
something in their childhood or something
Yeah.
in how they were raised.
Yep.
What advice would you give to people beyond buying the book and coming to you? But I mean, just a simple bit of advice to how to put that behind you and not necessarily forget it, because you don't ever forget it, but
No.
move beyond it.
Yeah, we're not supposed to forget it. That's where it becomes guiding guilt, right?
Right.
The thing is, though, is the longer you place it there and don't do something to diminish it or work on it, right? It sticks. And so for me, I had a lot of that. I was given away as a kid in foster care. I had this feeling of like I didn't matter and I wasn't lovable, and that carried for years into my 30s. And it took me a long time to realize that guilt a stage of suffering. You know, when you have this thing that's weighing on your heart, it's dark and it's some
Right.
weird. We sometimes can't even figure out how to get past it. And what I found is a statement somebody said to me one time that I love, and what it is simple: action ends suffering. Now,
Wow.
depends on what action you take, and some
Right.
actions may not end that suffering, right? But there is going to be, in the world of words, no matter what it is, there's going to be an action that ends that suffering. But if you sit
Yeah.
here and do nothing and you don't take the boldest action necessary, well, then you get stuck in the same place. And here's what kind of action it should be. And I talk about this tomorrow in my workshop I'm doing, but it's an uncharacteristic or out of character action. That's what most
Give an example of that.
Perfect. I'll give you one that it's just a simple, basic one, right? Let's say your neighbor Bob, every time the kids go by, Bob yells at the kids, Get off my lawn, quit, messing around, right? That's Bob's character. We know that's who Bob is, right?
Right.
Well, the assumption for us as humans, we hear out of character, we go, oh, I don't want to be out of character. I want to be bad. And usually it's because we're tribal humans, right? We're tribal species. And so to do out of character stuff, the tribe goes, what are you doing? And they ostracize you sometimes, right? However, let's say the kids walk by Bob's house and Bob greets them. Hey, kids, have a great day. Hey, what's Bob doing? That's out of character of Bob, right? It's out of character, but is it bad? No, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So what we don't usually attach this out of character action to is the fact that out of character is good. You're trying to do out of character actions.
Mhm.
And those out of character actions, they end that suffering and put you in a space where the guilt disappears a little bit. That's
Okay.
why people can be like, you know what, I did X, Y, or Z and that happened, but you know what, I did this and I rectified it. That's the action they took. And I
Sure.
guarantee, like, let's say, for example, someone's in a relationship and they're horrible as the relationship person, the partner, and eventually they go like, I'm not going to be that person. They
Yeah.
take the action, do the work that's out of character, and they get to a great space. Well, they can look back and go, you know what? They used to be who I was. I felt horrible, so I didn't do anything, but I fixed it. I stepped up. I did what I never did before. And now I'll never go back there again. Guiding guilt.
So then I'm gonna press a little bit because I love what you said. So let's take Bob again. So Bob is the character, yells at the kids.
Mhm.
Now Bob gets out of character and does something different. What's the step that Bob takes to go from the prior character to being out of character?
All you have to do is ask one question, man. Simple one.
I love this. I'm
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah. What would the person who has everything I want do in this situation right now?
Okay, repeat that because I want people to hear that. That's powerful.
What would the person who has everything I want do in this situation right now? And I want to make sure people grab why this is important. From a neurology standpoint, like psychology want to call it too, is if I go and ask you about your future self, there's an interesting study out of UCLA that's called The Stranger Inside. And if I ask you about people you know, you'd say I love them. No, I love lights up. But if I ask you about future self, stranger lights up in the brain. We don't have a direct connection emotionally to the person we are in the future. So when people say, what would my best self do? They don't know their best self yet. They don't know their future self. Not 100%, right?
Yeah.
But what I do know is I can look at someone and say, like, I know my dad. I can even a famous person. I know The Rock, right? And if you ask, what would The Rock do right now? It'll give you an action that
Yeah.
makes you go, oh, I don't want to do that. But that's the out of character action, right?
I
So when
love
Bob's
it.
sitting there, if Bob goes, what would my neighbor Anthony do? He's so nice to the kids to go. Anthony would say hi to the kids. All right, hey, hi kids, right? That's the thing. It's a very interesting dynamic. And so the work that we do is we actually craft what I call the ideal identity by looking at outside people. So you create that. And then in life, all you're doing is, for the most part, asking a question, what would that identity do right now?
See, I love that. I think you're onto something with the Rock identity. What would the Rock do? I think that you're onto something there.
Yeah, he'd get up at 4 in the morning. He would eat, metal weight plates. So he would do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I love that. So, so I want to, and I'm formulating the question, but so now I change that identity, right? Oh, I know where I want to go with this. So you talked about the future self. Can people design that future self?
Have to. You have to. And the reason you have to is because here's the baseline of it. The things you do habitually become who you are. What you are, what you consistently do, you become, so to speak.
Right.
And we become people. Today, we are someone because of what we habitually did for a long time, right? And so it's all based around what do you start to do now. Now, The thing is, people will typically look at a boss or a friend or a colleague, go, I want to do what they do. And they never ask the question, well, is it what I should do? They never think about two things. One, is that a person I want to be at the end? They look at the habits, but they don't look at the person, right? That's
Right.
one part of it. The second part is they're looking at somebody else's broke down car that has a flat tire and a busted window, and they're missing a timing belt, right? And what they don't realize is on their vehicle, they're missing gas. They have no driver's seat and the steering wheel's missing. But what they do is go, I'm going to fix my tire. I'm going to fix the window, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I have, whatever the third thing was for that car, a timing belt. I'm going to put that on. And they do that and they go, well, why is my car not going anywhere? Well, because you yourself need to fix the
Yeah.
gas, the seat,
Yeah.
and the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when I say design, you've got to look at what is your thing. Our method starts with that first piece of what is your work to do? What are your gaps to
Love it.
fill? So you actually take the right steps in the right direction.
Anthony, what you're talking about and the services and what you provide. I mean, we've got a lot of opportunity in our world today, and we have a lot of people who are really struggling with a lot of different things. And boy, what you're talking about, I just think hits home at such a high level. I mean, obviously impacts entrepreneurs and business owners, but just really impacts human beings. I mean,
It's
I'm
human,
just
man. Yeah, it's just in the world of work, you have to choose a demographic that's the closest you can talk to intimately. So while it
right.
affects everybody who has an identity, everybody, the individuals I seem to find are drawn to are those who are open to improvement. That's really
Yeah,
what it is. And it happens to be professional individuals who are trying to seek that next level of life.
I love it. So let's shift gears a little bit.
Let's do it.
What's the best advice that you've ever been given? It might be personal or professional, and
Mhm.
what did you learn from it?
You asked that earlier, and I was like, "What's the one?" And I think it goes back to my college days with my college coach named Don Pelham, DP. Man, DP was this guy that I hated when I was there, but in hindsight, I'm glad he made things difficult for me so I could strengthen myself. And here's what he also used to tell the entire team, or all the linebackers. He says, "It takes a little more to be a champion." It's a simple statement, and it's not something that
Right.
you think about in advance. It's something you think about in the moment when everything falls apart, the moment when you've reached your peak, and you sit there and go, "Okay, I'm tired. I'm dead. I don't do anything. What does it take to be a champion? A little more." And it's that stretch. It's like blowing a balloon up. A little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Eventually, you expand to where you can't go back to the normal self you were. You're
Yeah.
already expanded. So for me, it was always a matter of make sure it takes a little more. So the dark times stretch like another 5 minutes, another one rep, another 5 pounds, another phone call, like little things, man. It's those little things that press you in. And what I don't think he knew was in time when you do that, it becomes identity wise who you are to do
Right.
that thing. And the unique space, what the end result for me with that hustle harmony thing for people is the things that you used to do that were difficult to do now become difficult not to do.
Yeah.
It's so ingrained with who
Yeah.
you are that to stay in alignment with who you are, you have to do it. It's like when
So it's
people
that you learn that habit, and then it's a habit you apply across the board.
you can call it a habit, but it's connected to you. Like think about there's times I used to do these nightly 90s, right? These videos, and I did them for like 3.5 years, every night, 90-second video. It became who I was to do that. So that if I was at sleep at 10 o'clock at night and I go, holy crap, that video isn't filmed, as opposed to like, I'll do it tomorrow. I was like, no, I'm the guy who does that. It would be difficult to go to sleep and not get it done. I get up, I get it done.
Sure.
It's a vast different thing than a habit. It's an
Yeah.
alignment. It's a connection. It's like if I'm a
Like
father,
breathing.
it's like breathing, right? So when you can create that type, that's when you're in some special space. So when he said that years ago, that's kind of the mentality I've always worked with. And eventually I became the guy that does a little bit more. And so no, sure enough, I have some cool things happen in life.
Yeah, you sure do. So let's flip that upside down. Well, I
Yeah.
told you had to be prepared for this. What's the worst advice that you've ever been given that hopefully you didn't follow? And if you did, what did you learn?
Yeah, man. There was this guy was weird. When I was in college, it was my sophomore year of college, and I had a teammate who had a kid, and my wife, my fiance at the time, was pregnant. We were sitting there doing like dumbbell work, and he says, "Tell your girl to get an abortion." I was like,
Oh,
"Why?" He's like, "Well, because it's gonna ruin your life, ruin her life, all that stuff." My son is now a 4.2 GPA kid. He's going to college next year. He's one of the greatest humans I've met in this planet. Love the guy beyond words. It's crazy. And so definitely didn't take the advice and very happy I didn't.
wow. 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 Could you so we could probably have a long conversation on that individual's identity, right?
Yeah, we could. I don't do
Oh
that, but we could.
man, oh man, oh man. Okay, so Anthony, you have done an amazing job. And so I want you to come up with one final thought you'd share with our listeners. I'm going to do a little bit of PSA here.
All right.
And so, first of all, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for supporting everything that we do. You can get updates at thesuccessascent.com. You can find all of our episodes. We appreciate you subscribing at your favorite podcast source. We're all over the place. And anytime you can leave us a rating, we love that as well. So, Anthony, it's yours, man. This is the last opportunity. I could probably spend hours with you. Give us a thought. Take us away as something that you feel like would really impact people.
Man, there's literally so many things could take place, but I'll leave it at a simple thing. For me, the goal in life is to make shift happen. Every time I give a keynote or a speech, that's always my goal, because it's not about doing something that's like, oh, I did that today, but it's filling that cup of weird fulfillment and excitement. It's making something special happen. In order to make that happen, you have to own your shift. And owning your shift at face value is a statement, but it's actually 3 words. The first, to own, it means own up that you're the person to come save your life. No one else is going to. It's going to be actions you take to end your suffering. The next part is which means you're going to have to go to the next stage of doing the work yourself. There's work that can be done. Your duty is to do that work and then shift, which means you got to do it. There's a lot of people that know that's something to do. It's their responsibility, but don't do the work. If you can own your shift and face what you got to face, you'll find that over time, you make shift happen.
So you were kind enough to share. You have a workshop going on tomorrow. Today is January 6th. Tomorrow will be January 7th. So if people are listening or watching, workshop is tomorrow. We've got the URL tracking here, anthonytrucks.com/greatness. What are they going to get tomorrow? And that free?
Yeah, it's free. It's called the Guilt and Greatness Workshop. It's the way I look at what we're trying to create in this world is to go from a space of this guilt that's maybe hunkering us down, or what I call a break emotion, like slowing us down when we don't even see it, right? The blind spots. It's understanding what guilt is and how to go to guilt from great to greatness in your life. How I shift into that space where I'm experiencing a life that's crazy, and not from a philosophical standpoint. I'm a football guy, which means I'm big on action and tactics and strategies I can apply to get into flow and play free, right? That's what I want for people to get to hustle harmony. So tomorrow I'm going to talk to you and teach you how to go from guilt to greatness.
I love it. I love it. And what time is it at, in case people want to check on their schedule?
It's 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Okay, awesome. Well, Anthony, again, thank you so much for everything you've contributed today. I really appreciate your time. I know how busy you are getting ready for that workshop as well. So we just really, truly appreciate your time today.
You're welcome, man. Thank you for having me.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. Again, as I end every episode, be happy, be healthy, be safe until we talk again. Take care.